You're watching our live coverage of the Jessica Chambers case out of Mississippi, where one of the treating physicians is on the witness stand talking about the severity of the burns that victim Jessica Chambers endured the day that she died. Mike Koribanics is with us here on the Law&Crime Network. He's an attorney, former prosecutor. Good to see you again, Mike.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, this is a trial that's resulting in prosecutors trying to get a lot of evidence in. Is it all necessary? Do they need to go this far?
I don't know why they're doing this. I think sometimes prosecutors can over-prosecute a case. What I mean by that is nobody's disputing that this young lady died a horrible death. The question is who did it. And they got to be careful because a very astute defense attorney will say, why do they keep talking about everything except who did this? They've just paraded in a whole bunch of emergency room people. We're not disputing how this young lady died. Why are they doing that? Because they're not focusing on what the real issue is here is who did this. And I think they're really laying it on a little too heavy. And I think the jury will get turned off at a certain point of how many times you have to see pictures of burns, things of that nature. They get it.
They get it, but it also has an emotional sympathy factor.
Well, it does have an emotional sympathy factor, but you got to watch because there's a fine line between when you get sympathy and when people feel like they're being oversold on something. And jurors are told to pay attention to the facts, to not let sympathy enter into their deliberations. And when lawyers try to play too much on sympathy, I think that the jurors become a little bit suspicious and they become a little bit apprehensive.
And they may be, in fact, doing that in this case. Look, we're going to take a quick break from the Jessica Chambers case here on the Law&Crime Network, but we will be back with more live testimony on the flip side of this break. Stick around. This is our live coverage of the Jessica Chambers murder case out of Mississippi, where defendant Quentin Tellis is facing his second trial after his first murder trial resulted in a hung jury. We'll be back to that testimony from the doctor in just a moment, but first, Mike Koribanics is here with me on the Law&Crime Network, and we're wondering, Mike, why is the defense throwing away some perfectly good objections here? And my theory is the defense is just going to let the prosecution throw everything in and at the end just turn around and say, but they haven't proven who did it.
I agree with you. I think that's what they're doing. I don't think it's a good move. I think they are going to allow this jury perhaps to be overwhelmed by sympathy. I mean, you see when the camera pans to the front, you see the family. The family came and look at these pictures. They've looked at it so many times. So they're playing a real dangerous game here. You know, there's rules of evidence that you could object to evidence simply as being cumulative over and over and over again with no probative value. I don't see what probative value this doctor's offered, and I don't know why the defense allows us to keep getting played over and over again.
Well, certainly because the prosecution wants to play it over and over again.
Well, you got to give them a fight. You can't let them do that because I think although the prosecutors might hurt themselves at the end, you really don't want to take that chance. There's too much at risk.
Rules of evidence allow you to have the trial you want, to get evidence into the trial you want, and to keep it out of the trial that you don't want. And we're not seeing a lot of strong objections here. We saw one or two, but not too many. Maybe that'll change as things go on. Again, we're continuing to cover the Quentin Tellis case out of Mississippi. We're going to be following this live as long as it runs tonight. Before we get back to that, though, first a quick sponsor message from my colleague, Jesse Weber. After that, a quick break, and then we'll bring you right back live to testimony in the trial. Welcome back to Law&Crime, ladies and gentlemen. Court is actually in a quick break because a freight train appears to be rumbling through the area where the trial is being heard, and it's so loud that it disrupted the testimony in the courtroom. Mike Koribanics here with me at the Law&Crime Network. The defense was sort of swimming around to get to a point, and the defense finally got to a really good point while we were in that break. The question was, well, doctor, you don't think it's possible for her to have formed a proper word, but all these first responders said that she communicated clearly and that they heard her say not just words or sounds, but phrases, sentences. Things like, Eric set me on fire. Is that enough for you to change your opinion that she couldn't speak? And he's like, oh, no, 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 no.
I think that hurts the doctor, and I think she should stop. She's ahead. The argument she should make is not with this expert because he's actually a good expert. I think they've allowed him to testify on a lot of things I don't think he's qualified to testify to. However, the argument should be made that the expert was so entrenched in his own opinion. He disregarded independent evidence that contradicted his findings from people who had no axe to grind here. These were people trying to help her.
Yeah, let's listen back in to hear how he tries to dig himself out of this. We're going to bring you back to live testimony in the Jessica Chambers case in just a moment here on the Law and Crime Network. But first, attorney Mike Koribanics along with me here. The defense is really letting this witness get away from them.
Bob Bianchi always says, be careful of the expert because you better watch when you get in a cage with that bear. Speak about heat. He's throwing heat to the defense. The defense has let him run, editorialize, make answers more clear. They had such a good opportunity to get out of here, get out with this witness and be able to deal with it on summation. But he just pulled him right back into the cage, and he's causing damage to the defense. I think this cross-examination, which at one point was solid, is going up in flames. And I don't mean to be funny, but they're talking about heat. He's bringing it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in a few moments here, the defense really had some good headway, and I'm just like, oh, they're starting to take off here with some good questions. They're starting to corner this guy. He says that there's no way that she could have articulated words after the burn, but all these other witnesses said she did, and she responded to questions, and she uttered things that were intelligible. He says she didn't have the medical ability to do that. Well, they started to get some headway. What she needed to say, meaning the defense attorney needed to say is, well, this witness, name the witness, testified that she said this, and you weren't there to hear it, correct? No, I wasn't. And the next witness said it. You weren't there to hear it, correct? Yes. The next witness and go through every single one of them. Now, that would have gotten him somewhere.
That would have gotten him somewhere. Good cross-examiners do things in an economic way. You ask the questions, but you don't ask the one question too many. The advocate will speak to the jury and put together all those facts that are laid out there. They're trying to get this very experienced expert to correct himself. That's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Why even try? Anyway,
Correct.
Looks like they're going to get some redirect here from the state. Let's go back into live testimony. That was a really strong redirect from the state here in the Jessica Chambers murder case. Attorney Mike Koribanics is still with me here at the Law and Crime Network. The state got in there, asked the key questions. They were short, they were succinct, they made the point, and then they got out of there. And that's exactly what the state should have done. That's
a training video for any young prosecutor. That prosecutor got up and hurt them for asking so many questions by making his redirect, because he never said about the reasonable degree of medical certainty. He said, I don't think, prior to that. And by that long and exhaustive cross-examination, it went nowhere. They gave the prosecutor the opportunity to regroup, and he got him to say, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, do you think she could have communicated? And he said no. He never said that before. He said, I think, I speculated, they should have left him alone.
You know, there the state wound up collecting a lot more of the little gold nuggets than the defense, and the defense had such opportunity with that witness, and the defense flushed it away.
Questioning is all about quality, not quantity. They achieved more in 2 questions on redirect than they did on direct and cross-examination. That jury left with knowing exactly what that expert had to testify to, and the judge reminded him he came all the way from Memphis. That was a great expert witness, and the prosecution did a great job on that.
Okay, so look, does the defense get a chance to get up there during closing arguments and say, hey, look, you heard from all of these witnesses who testified that they asked her questions and that she uttered clear answers. They were clear enough where all of those witnesses who were at the scene put them in quotes in their reports, and they got up here and testified. But this doctor said, oh, she couldn't speak. You listen to your friends and neighbors who live in your town, people like you, who heard what came out of her mouth, and you disregard that doctor who wasn't even there. Does the defense get away with doing that, or is the defense on shaky ground at this point?
They're on shaky ground because this is such a good expert witness. This guy was really a good expert witness. He was folksy. He explained in normal terms. You didn't need a dictionary.
His mama didn't raise no liar.
And
that's what he said.
And then he said, and his mama raised no liar, who's especially not going to lie in court here today. I mean, what more do you need?
It was a colorful moment in court. It was certainly a surprise. It's one that I'm sure that we'll hear time and time again as we continue to go on through the case here. You know, I'm wondering exactly what the defense is going to try to do next here. I mean, they can't do anything more with this witness, but they really lost a lot there.
I think they did. I think they did. And they lost the ability to have a very strong closing because the prosecution said they could say what they want, but you heard him say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty. She couldn't have spoken.
And in the beginning, that was where the issue was because he was speculating. He said, well, I don't think she would have been able to. It wasn't sealed up with that reasonable degree of medical certainty language that's legally necessary for it to really stick. But the state got it on the redirect. Interesting. Look, we're going to take a quick break in the Jessica Chambers case. While the court is on break, we'll be back right after this here on the Law and Crime Network. We are looking back at previous testimony in the Jessica Chambers case as we wait for a mid-afternoon break to wrap up in that Mississippi courtroom. Mike Koribanics is with me here on the Law and Crime Network. Mike, this is a good time to look back at this first responder testimony because we just watched the defense try and ultimately not do a very good job of trying to refute a doctor who said she was so severely injured she couldn't have said anything intelligible after the attack. Yet these witnesses are saying she responded to questions. She gave the first responders her name. So who's correct?
I think...
And I'm asking you to be a juror here.
I think the defense should have left that expert alone. They had so much with people with nothing involved here. Experts are hired by the prosecution. They're on the side. These were just people who were there. They should have left it alone, like you stated earlier, not tried to get out of an expert, and just say, these people totally dispute them, and they have no dog in the race.
You know, part of me wonders, is the defense afraid of coming across as too harsh in a case like this?
I think you may be right, but I think they're coming across too soft. I mean, you still have someone's life on the line. There's a sweet spot in between there. Yeah, and it's difficult to find, but I think they're staying too far away.
Well, we're going to continue our analysis of the Jessica Chambers case when we come back here on the Law and Crime Network. Again, court is in a mid-afternoon break. We will bring you back to live testimony as soon as things pick up. In the meantime, we will continue to analyze that first responder testimony when we return. Testimony there from one of the first responders who was at the scene. He was very upset about what he came across, and indeed during the first trial he broke down and cried on the stand. Mike Koribanics, while we wait for this break to wrap up in court, we're going to stay on the air here, but look, I'm taking notes here on what all these first responders said just to remind myself as to what was going on here. One witness said that she said her name was Jessica Chambers. A number of them said that she uttered the phrase Eric or Derek in response to questions about who did this to her. She also said, help me, help me. She also asked for water. So here you have a series of intelligible discussions that the doctor who was on the stand said that she shouldn't have been able to have from a medical standpoint. So I realize that the defense kind of fell down with the questioning, but the doctor who wasn't at the scene has one opinion, and yet all of these witnesses refute that opinion.
I think it's problematic for the prosecution because not only that, these witnesses, I mean, these are volunteers. These people deserve a lot of credit. They come to these scenes. They don't get paid. They go through extensive training. I think the one thing that's very important, and you make a good point when you say about the water, what really sticks out about me, it was to me about that statement, as you pointed out, is this guy also used it and repeated it to someone else because he wanted to know if it was okay. So he obviously heard something that was very distinct and put all of his first responder training into motion because he said, I always ask for a second opinion. If I'm the defense, I really hammer on that point because this is really a witness who really is there for no other reason but to help, a good Samaritan.
Yeah, the doc is looking at the pictures. He's trying to make sense of things, and he's just saying, look, I don't think she'd be able to have an intelligible conversation, but yet again, we have witness after witness after witness who were at the scene who say, look, these are all the things that she said. It looks like court is coming back into session, though. Mike Koribanics, I want to say thank you, though, because I think that you have to take off.
I do,
we've
thank
kept
you.
you a few minutes late, but we appreciate your opinions always.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Aaron. Have a great night.
Okay, yeah, I think we're going to pitch back into court, though. This is a mid-afternoon recess that is wrapping up, again, in the Jessica Chambers case. Court could run very, very late tonight, so we're going to stay with things in Mississippi as long as court is in session. This is a trial that got a jury that is sequestered from a different county, so the judge really wants to keep things rolling along. Looks like the judge is on the bench. Let's listen in.